I'd done all the research. I found out this is a very safe thing to do. I specifically researched the school where I was going to be skydiving, made sure that they were safe and had no accidents. But all of that just disappeared when I stood at the doorway looking at the Earth a very long way down.
I was watching a video the other day with Dr. Lawrence Krauss in a debate against William Lane Craig, and it's amazing when you listen to new atheists, and that's the Richard Dawkins, the Christopher Hitchens, Lawrence Krauss, or if you read their works, you get this sense that science has buried God. They speak that way with this full force and authority of their academic background and their credentials, and it's led this view that faith and science are incompatible, or faith is irrational or unreasonable. And it's gone so far as if you're a person who has faith, people assume you're believing in something contrary to the evidence.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart because I've dug in, you and I love the Christian faith and the truth and the beauty of it. And if you believe this, you're going to miss out on that. And we've spent a lot of time digging in asking the question of whether God exists or not and looking at the evidence both scientifically, philosophically, our experience with faith. And both, first of all, completely disagree that science has buried God. And in fact, the research has led us to have a very strong conviction in our faith.
And Christianity doesn't tell people to check in their brains at the church door.
Absolutely not. But you'd think that.
You would. And I remember Lewis says that when he was an atheist, he could never understand why Christians regarded faith as a virtue. He said, I used to say a sane man accepts or rejects any statement, not because he wants to or does not want to, but because the evidence seems to him good or bad. If he thought the evidence was bad, but tried to force himself to believe in spite of it, that would be merely stupid.
I mean, that ending. I love how he's saying belief, if you believe something contrary to the weight of the evidence, you're an idiot. I mean, straight out of C.S. Lewis's mouth. That is not what faith is.
No, and I'd actually say Christianity is the religion where faith and reason can actually come together.
And I first started recognizing this during exploring all of this, the questions that we're asking right now. At my time at Oxford, I just read the book by Richard Dawkins, The God Delusion.
The Atheist Bible.
It is, and it sold millions of copies. And if that's the first book you start with and the last one you read, it's convincing. But when I read it, it left me dissatisfied. And maybe by the grace of God, a week or two later after I read it, I'm walking across New College, the campus at Oxford, and there's Richard Dawkins. And so I run over to him.
Took a selfie.
Still way before that era, but I would have. And I asked him, I said, I really like your book, I appreciate it, but I'm struggling because it doesn't seem to answer the beginning of time. Why is there something rather than nothing? And he pointed me towards a friend of his, a colleague, Dr. Lawrence Krauss, who wrote this book, A Universe from Nothing. Why there's something rather than nothing. And this is supposed to be almost the second Bible for atheists in the sense that, because that's a question atheism has never been able to offer very good explanations for, satisfying explanations. And so this, I'm looking at the title and thinking to myself, all right, this is going to be it. And I wanted atheism to be true at the time. And I read it and I'm thinking to myself, this just redefines nothing. Quantum vacuum based on certain principles and configurations in the beginning of time is not nothing. Where did those come from?
And this entire question of the origin of the universe, it's often been something that theists have pointed to. There's a philosophical example called the Kalam argument. And it's based on two very simple premises and a rather obvious conclusion. The first premise is that everything that begins to exist has a cause. We just know that intuitively. You have cause, you have effect. We don't just expect things to pop into existence for no reason. The second premise is the universe began to exist. And I think the weight of scientific evidence really backs that up, particularly recently. I think even people like Dr. Krauss would admit that.
He does in the video, actually.
So if we've got everything that begins to exist has a cause, the universe began to exist, the obvious conclusion is that therefore the universe has a cause. And initially that doesn't sound like much, but we can reason a little bit about this cause. So when the universe came into existence, so did time, space, and matter. Therefore, the cause of this must be timeless, spaceless, and immaterial. And this eternal cause needs to be personal in order to create something like the universe. And it also needs to be incredibly powerful in order to make everything. So we have a cause that's timeless, spaceless, immaterial, personal, and immensely powerful. It sounds kind of like God.
It does.
I mean, we're not all the way to the Trinitarian God of Christianity, but we are some way along that. And I think that should at least be enough evidence to cause an atheist to perhaps reconsider whether or not God exists.
And we can get a step closer to the Christian God, actually through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. If the resurrection was true, Christianity is true. If it's not, Christianity is not. I mean, it's that simple. Mm-hmm. And when I first heard this argument, or this presented this way to me, the life of the disciples as a testimony to the validity of the resurrection, it blew my mind. You have these disciples that follow this gentleman, Jesus Christ, who claims to be the Son of God, claims to be the Messiah, claims to be able to forgive sins, and then he's brutally, shamefully, embarrassingly tortured and killed by the Roman Empire. Of course, they all go into hiding. I mean, he even says, I believe they went into a room in fear.
I would.
I would too. And then something happens. And then fast forward, and they're willing to die for their faith, to the point of, I believe, Peter was crucified upside down for his faith. And so it begs the question, what happened? How do you go from complete fear to complete fearlessness to the point of death? And in my opinion, the most plausible explanation is these people saw a human being who was killed, risen from the dead.
Yeah, and it's not like they would be doing this for power, because to proclaim Jesus is Lord meant that they would get kicked out of the synagogue. Yeah. And it also put them in direct competition with the Roman Empire, because in the Roman Empire, Caesar is Lord, not Jesus.
Yeah, they had no earthly reason to do this.
No, and to be, say, Bishop of Rome, that wasn't a position of immense power, that was a death sentence.
Yeah, today we think being Bishop of Rome would be a great privilege and honor. Not then, not under Nero or Domitian.
So faith is not blind faith. We've offered reasons today why believe in God, why believe in Jesus. And this comes back to Lewis's question, why is faith a virtue? And in Mere Christianity, he says that he hadn't been thinking about human beings correctly. He thought of them as purely rational creatures, that once they see evidence, they would believe something rationally, and they would continue believing it until new evidence presented itself. But he said he didn't even do that. You have these emotions, these passions, that perform a blitz on our reason. He said that if any man became a Christian, he can promise them what's going to happen. Somewhere along the line, he's going to want to sleep with somebody that he shouldn't, or make some money in some unjust way. Basically, it's going to be very convenient for him for Christianity not to be true. His emotions will be performing this blitz on his reason. And when I read that, it put me in mind of when I went skydiving. I'd done all the research. I found out this is a very safe thing to do. I specifically researched the school where I was going to be skydiving, made sure that they were safe and had no accidents. But all of that just disappeared when I stood at the doorway looking at the earth a very long way down.
Oh, that would have happened to me. I'd be scared out of my mind.
I was.
But you jumped.
Only pride got me out of that door, but yes.
That would have worked for me too, actually. And not faith. It makes me think of Mother Teresa, though. In her story, if you read her letters, at the end of her life, she actually writes about not being able to feel God's presence in her life. And so her emotions were blitzing her, deceiving her. But yet she stuck to what she knew to be true based on her life, based on reason, based on evidence, even though she didn't feel it.
Mm. I've heard it said that faith is holding on to in the darkness what you've previously seen in the light.
It's a great way to put it. I'll drink to that.
I'll drink to that. Cheers.
We want to thank you for watching this. David and I are incredibly passionate about the Christian faith. In our journey, we found there to be such truth and beauty in it. And if there's anything you disagree with, if there's anything you're struggling with that we just haven't talked about, we invite you to share that in the comments, and we would love the opportunity to address that, to do a video on it. Because if you're struggling with it, probably others are.
And if you are an excellent sort of person who wants to go to heaven, please share this link.
It's that simple. We offer you heaven for very cheap.
But seriously, if you found one of our videos helpful, if it has helped you grow in your love and understanding of Christianity or C.S. Lewis, please share it with your friends. See you next time.
Further up,
Further in.
cheers.